Hello, I'm Tom Brickhouse, and this is Alternate Increase, the channel dedicated to increasing wealth through Bitcoin. This is part 2 in a series called What is Bitcoin? In part 1, we covered the simple question of what is Bitcoin, and you can find a link to that video below. In this video, part 2, we'll be talking about how did Bitcoin start. In future videos, we'll be covering what is the Bitcoin blockchain, what is Bitcoin mining, what gives Bitcoin its value, and why should I own Bitcoin? So, how did Bitcoin start? Well, the first milestone came in 2008 when a white paper was published by Satoshi Nakamoto. You know, actually though, the idea of digital currency was floated as far back as 1982. The concept of e-cash was proposed by a computer scientist named David Chaum. And in 1998, Y-Day released an essay detailing his idea for B-money. And Nick Szabo put out a similar proposal for BitGold. Both of these ideas included many of the features that would end up in the Bitcoin white papers. In August of 2008, Bitcoin.org was registered, and in October the same month, the white paper was published. The paper was called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And the ideas proposed in the white paper was to have secure digital signatures, no need for a third party in between, just peer-to-peer, proof of work, which was accomplished by solving mathematical problems with computers, and lastly, a hashing of the transactions together to form a chain. We call that a blockchain. Well, you may be asking right now, who is this Satoshi Nakamoto? Well, that's the interesting part of the whole story. Nobody knows. Speculation is it could be a synonym for a group of people, a group of developers. But so far, nobody has stepped forward to claim that they are Satoshi Nakamoto. Remember in part 1, we talked about the smallest unit of a Bitcoin was called a Satoshi. So now we know where it got its name. 2009, first Bitcoin was mined, first transaction made, and by the end of the year, $1 could buy 10,000 Bitcoin. I should point out here that BTC is the initials, the trading symbol for Bitcoin. So anytime you see BTC, it's talking about Bitcoin. So early, just a few days into 2009, the first Bitcoin block was mined, and that is known as the Genesis block. And by January 9, the first version of the software was released. And on January 12, the first ever Bitcoin transaction was made when 10 Bitcoins was sent to Hal Finney. He's a computer programmer and developer. By October, the first exchange rate was published, deeming $1 to be worth $1,309.03. In other words, $1 could buy over 1,000 Bitcoin. And also, that end of that year, the second version, in December, the second version of the software was released. Before I go any further, I need to point out that the source for this video is from an article called Bitcoin History, Timeline, Origins, and Founder by Steve Fiorolo, I believe it's pronounced. and I found it at the thestreet.com. There'll be a link below so you can read the whole article. Moving along, in 2010, the first purchase was made for 2 pizzas for 10K BTC, and the market cap reached over $1 million. Now, that first part is kind of an interesting story, because in May 22nd of 2010, a Florida-based programmer sent 10,000 bitcoins to a London man in exchange for 2 pizzas. The 2 pizzas were valued at $25. So that's like, that's in the millions of dollars if you calculate how much a Bitcoin is now. But that's still celebrated, by the way, by Bitcoin enthusiasts as Bitcoin Pizza Day. Kind of amusing. But after that purchase, people started paying attention to Bitcoin and said, hey, this thing might be something here. And Bitcoin started to rise from just fractions of an inch, fractions of a penny, to finally, before the end of the year, it broke the 1 penny barrier. The first Bitcoin exchanges were started, and the first mining pool successfully mined some Bitcoin. And a mining pool is, as you might expect, is when different miners pooled their efforts together to mine Bitcoin. And by November, the market cap had surpassed $1 million. But it wasn't all rosy for Bitcoin in 2010, because in October, a vulnerability was discovered by someone in the Bitcoin protocol, and they exploited that vulnerability and generated 184 billion with a B Bitcoin. Well, it was soon discovered, and the transaction was erased, and the vulnerability was fixed. And I believe that's about the only one I know about when the code was at issue. But it was fixed. This was early, and it is now considered a very secure currency. Next, we're going to look at the price of Bitcoin on a chart from 2011 to 2018. Okay, what we're looking at here is a chart of the history of the price of Bitcoin in US dollars. I found this one on marketwatch.com. And this, like I said, this shows the entire history. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in and take it year by year, starting at 2011. At the beginning of 2011, it was 30 cents, about 30 cents. It actually peaked out at about $30. Now that's pretty good movement. It did retrace, went down below 10 bucks by the end of the year. But still, if you had got in at 20 cents and it was now worth over $5, that's pretty good. So let's see what happens in 2012. In 2012, the price started out, like I said, about 6 bucks, but we see a steady climb, a steady growth in that month. The high of that year, the high of that year was around 13 bucks. So back up, and it closed above about $13. So nothing spectacular, but steady growth. Let's go ahead to 2013. Much of 2013 was a little bit flat. It stayed around, but it did get above $100. And it stayed above $100 for much of the year. Then, in November, there was substantial growth, and it actually, again, broke the $1,000 mark. Retraced a little bit, closed about $800, but that was a phenomenal year for Bitcoin. So let's go forward to 2014. Now, 2014 actually saw a bear market for Bitcoin. As it started at about, it topped off peaked at about 950 and ended at about 250. So if you were in at that time, you weren't too happy. You probably thought, oh, this was a big mistake. It's going bad. But if you'd stuck with it, we come to 2015, stabilized, bounced around a little bit between 200, 300, bounced back and forth. Then it got above 400, and at the end of the year, it was about 450. 2016 was another year of steady growth. Just a nice steady growth, and then once again, it broke the $1,000 barrier. Came down to about 750, a little above 750, 760. So that's a good year, but the best was yet to come for Bitcoin. 2017 started out about just under $1,000, and in March it broke above $1,000. $2,000 in May. You trace it a little bit, but not much. By September, it was $4,600. By November, $6,390 so dollars. Let's zoom in a little bit on this section. December, $11,400. And then it topped out in December above 19,000, almost hit 20,000, and then retraced. Closed out the year at 13,500. So finally, let's take 2018. From the beginning of 2018, we have been in a bear market since then. Zoom in a little, it went down to about 5,800. It's the low point. Right now we are at 6,200 or so. But it has stabilized. It has stayed in a range from, well, we could call it 6,000 to 7,000. And it has stabilized. Well, I hope you got something out of part 2 of my series, What is Bitcoin? I'll run down through the history of Bitcoin from its inception and to the present date. And if you like this video, I appreciate it if you click the little thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel. Also, there are links to the article and some of the people I talked about, and a link also to the white paper that we talked about. So until next time, I will say goodbye.